Hello, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, lovely listeners. A very warm welcome to new listeners to the podcast, and of course to those of you who are tuning in with me every Wednesday. To make sure this remains a beautiful, safe space to listen, I just wanted to let you know before we get started that there is discussion of suicide and suicidal ideation in this episode. If this is not a comfortable listen for you this week, then I very much look forward to being back with you again next week. All right, let's go. I am so excited. I have some big news that I finally get to share with you today before I introduce our very special guest. It's actually been quite hard to keep this one under wraps, but it's a relief. I can finally share with you that from today, your weekly Well, Hello Anxiety podcast episodes will be jointly and very proudly brought to you each week by me, your host, Dr. Jodi Richardson, and Positive Media, home of 89.9 TheLight. And honestly, it is just such a joy to be coming to you from the studio here at Positive Media and to introduce my very first guest as part of this new beautiful partnership. Lucy Holmes is here with me today. We're jointly in the studio and it's just so lovely to be with you, Lucy. So welcome.
Congratulations on your partnership. It's like you're marrying Jodi's marrying Positive Media. You've become one. And it's wonderful to have you in the stable of the Positive Media podcasts.
I feel like I'm home already. It's
Good.
just, I've been here enough times and you have been such an integral part of making me feel at home and so welcome. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Lucy, you are on the other side of the mic today.
Yes.
I'm in the hot seat and you're in the guest seat. And I'd love for you to, obviously, our 89.9 TheLight family will know you very, very well. But some of my listeners may not have had the pleasure of meeting you. Can you tell our listeners a little about yourself?
Yes, so I am a radio host, a breakfast radio host. I have worked in radio for about 15 years doing brekkie radio. And that has been the most wonderful journey of my life. I absolutely love the format of just audio and talking and radio and podcasting. I absolutely love it. But aside from that as well, I have been a performer for the last 20 odd years. I'm a singer. I've been on a lot of TV shows. I've hosted TV shows. I'm a Kylie Minogue impersonator. I've done that for 20 odd years. And I'm a mum. I am divorced. I'm remarried. I've got a blended family. And I have anxiety, which is why I'm here.
Yes. And Lucy and I were chatting. I said, Lucy, I didn't sleep very well last night. I was a bit anxious about today. And Lucy said, I'm in the same boat. So what kept you up last night if you're happy to talk a little bit about it?
Just a lot going on in my life, like professionally and personally. And we're kind of house hunting. And there's that going on. And then co-parenting. We've got all the kids in the house for school holidays. So there's just a lot. And my brain last night was just moving 1,000 miles an hour and I could not turn it off. And normally I go to bed at 9 and I wake up at about 4:35.
Yes.
And last night I looked at the clock and it was 2 o'clock and I was still awake. And I'm like, I've got to get up in 2.5 hours. And I could not switch my brain off last night. Tried everything, could not do it.
Oh, I felt the same. I actually ended up watching telly, which is not advised. And all of the people I've spoken to on the podcast about sleep will say it's not something that we should do because it wakes us up more. But I'd been like you. And in fact, one of the strategies that I tried last night, and I laugh about this, was I recently had a guest, Dr. Madeline Wishart, who talked about using the alphabet and having a theme.
Oh.
If you're really focused on something that's sort of worrying you or keeping you awake, that you could have a theme. And last night I used the alphabet strategy and I've used the theme of gratitude. What am I grateful for? I've used the theme of, vegetables and food and things like that. And I thought, I'm going to use a different theme. I'm going to use cars. Can I? And I thought I'd get to like D or E. And I got all the way through the alphabet. I was so wide awake. I think I got stuck on O and then I thought of Outlander.
Oh.
And
What was Z? What was Z?
Actually, I must have fallen asleep.
There you go.
I got
It
to
worked.
V, W,
Yep.
Actually, I got to W now that you asked me that
There
question.
you go. It worked.
I did.
Took you the
But
whole
then I woke up
alphabet.
again. So, it's just such a
Yes.
joy to be with you. So thank you for being so open. And that was why I really wanted to talk to you first with this first episode for a number of reasons. Number one, you just make me feel so welcome and at home and relaxed and far less anxious about this big change for me.
Yeah.
Number two, you're so open and you always have been. And so if you were to tune into Lucy and Cal between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. here, in Australian time, of course, on 89.9, you'll hear that Lucy's really open. She's an open book. She shares really openly ups and downs. And I think that that's what really makes people feel so comfortable with you in general. And so can you tell us a bit about anxiety? It's something that you live with. What's it like sort of day to day for you living with anxiety with everything else that's going on in your wonderful and busy life?
Yeah. Look, when I started in radio, I thought I had to be the woman who had it all together.
Yeah.
I had to be the one that people listen to go, I want to be like her. She's got it all together. She is flying. And so there was an element of, in my really early days when I was really young, of performance, like make sure people like you. Yes. Don't talk about things that are too tricky. Oh, don't talk about mental health. That was 15 years ago when I started and we just didn't talk about mental health. No one did. That's really kind of a new thing in the last decade. So what happened is I ended up going through a really, really, really awful time. I went through a really kind of very tricky divorce, very contentious, in court for a long time. It's so emotional. And that felt like, and I see a psychologist, and it felt like, and I've said this to her so many times, like someone just opened up this massive Pandora's box of mental health issues and it all flew out. Depression, anxiety. I was suicidal for a long time. It just all came pouring out through this divorce process. And because it was so protracted, because family court is, in many issues, a long process, it just felt like I was drowning for a few years. And then when I got through that, I remember saying to my psychologist, does the lid come back down on Pandora's box? Like, do I get to shove all that stuff back in, shut it, lock and go, fixed, no more depression, no more anxiety? And she was great. She never was like, no, it's not going to happen. And she wasn't like, you're going to be stuck with this forever. She's like, look, it's just a journey. And so now post-divorce and post-healing after a few years and remarrying, I have come to realize that through all that trauma, my brain did rewire itself, and perhaps anxiety is something that I am going to have to live with. I really managed the depression well. I had great medication. Yes. I had a great psychologist, great support, great family support. Obviously, the suicidal ideation was a period of 6 months, and I moved through that as well. And this is all a few years ago now. But I have realized that probably the thing that might hang around for me is anxiety. Yeah. And I'm okay with that now. Yeah. I really am. And so for me, anxiety kind of comes up. It is a daily thing sometimes. As you would know, it can be anything. It can be something small. It can be someone giving you a weird look in the shops and you go, what have I done to that person? Why do they hate me? And then for an hour I'll think, why did that person glare at me? What have I ever done to that person? Where I think some people would just glare at someone and someone would go, oh, I don't care. Like if someone glared at my husband, he wouldn't even notice and he would never care. But I will obsess over it. Or I'll come to work and I've got to do a presentation, and I will, I'm a confident person, I'm an extrovert, but inside I'll be panicking. What will they think of me? Did I stumble on a word? I stumbled on a word. They're not going to think I'm clever. Like that kind of just constant criticizing of myself. That is where my anxiety comes out. And then in obviously pressured situations, I just sometimes can just elevate to a level really quickly where I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So that's how it plays out for me.
That's how it plays out. And yet it's such an example, isn't it? We can never know what someone's going through by looking at them. Mm-hmm. And people would see you performing in your 100% Kylie show and never connect the idea that you are a person that struggles with anxiety but can stand on stage, sing and dance, more than stand on stage, and entertain. And so how do you find those situations when you are performing? Because I find that I get really excited. I'm so passionate, and I know you are too, that even if there is anxiety, I bring it with me, and it's not usually overwhelming. How do you find it when you are under pressure in those circumstances?
It's so weird because I am at my most comfortable when I'm on stage, especially in a costume. Being Kylie, because I'm not me. So there's this, I think there's neurologically, there's something happening where I'm like, haha, you all love Kylie. So
yes, here I
am. When I do a lot of MC work too, and that's different because I'm like, I feel naked. I'm like, it's me, but where I get to be Kylie, and I've done her for 21 years, it's very comfortable to put on that facade. So I actually don't have anxiety when I perform. I feel like that is my safest place because I know how to do it and I'm good at it. My anxiety though is in the lead up to gigs, where I'll be like, how long is it going to take me to get to that venue? Where do I park? Where on earth am I going to load out the costumes? What's the green room look like? What will the audience be like? What happens if the audience don't like me? And I work my way up into this strange headset before gigs. Soon as I'm in costume and I step on stage, everything's gone and I'm in my happy place. And then after a show, I'm like, oh, amazing. Yes. So I often now, because I've done it so long, when I find myself going into that pattern of where do I park? Will the audience like me? What will happen? I tell myself, I'm like, Lucy, what's your facts? Because my psychologist is like, what's your fact file? Go to your facts. What do you know to be true? And I'm like, I know I have done this for 21 years. I have toured the world. Kylie Minogue said I'm the best Kylie impersonator in the world.
What?
Yes, we've got all these crazy things. And I'm like, I know I can do this. Yeah. I know the parking will solve itself. I know the audience will love it. I'm like, you know the facts, Lucy. You've done it for 21 years, so what does history tell you? And then I bring myself back down and then I perform. So my anxiety doesn't come out too much as a performer. It comes out in day-to-day life.
Comes out in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing before about the struggles that you had. And we have so many parallels. Yeah. And I just wanted to share with you that when my anxiety went undiagnosed for a long time, I ended up suffering with major clinical depression. And in my life, depression isn't a part of my life anymore. Anxiety is a part of my life. And like you, I was medicated for my depression, and then I sort of felt like I'd really recovered. I'm like, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Whoops. So that was a journey in itself. But they often go hand in hand. And I'm curious to know how old your daughter was when you were going through this and how you managed, because there will be parents listening who are living through that at the moment, really struggling. There are a lot of stresses in a lot of families' lives and a lot of people's lives. I'd really love to understand how you coped, what helped, and your daughter is Shiloh, how old she was. This is like the Spanish Inquisition, and kind of how you parented through that really difficult time.
She was around 4 years old, and then the period where I was probably at my worst was probably when she was about 4 to 6, and that was also concurrently with like COVID when we were all in lockdown. So that was tricky. I probably will cry. So just trying to touch my emotions in a good way. I am so hard on myself. Look, all mums are hard on themselves, full stop, right? So I look back and I'm like, I feel like I failed her sometimes, but I did the best I could do. Yeah. And I have an incredibly beautiful daughter. She is 9 years old now. She is extraordinarily clever and resilient and wise and funny and witty and so in touch with her emotions, because I learnt how to touch my emotions and now she's taught that as well. So all my counselling has paid off. But it was really tricky. And at my worst, I was so very blessed that I actually had moved out and I was living on a granny flat attached to my best friend's house, who is the most extraordinary woman. And I lived in this granny flat, so I was like 7 meters away from their house, and my daughter was with me most of the time. And those nights where I wasn't okay, I had support a few meters away. Yeah. I understand that is such a place of privilege. I understand the privilege in that. Not everyone has that. If I didn't have her or that place to move into, I don't know what would have happened. So I'm very, very grateful, because I know that's not everyone's journey. So on those nights where I could not cope, I knew she was a text away. And she would come over and she would put my daughter to bed if I was at breaking point. And I was so snappy and I was an angry mum and I never wanted to be that. And I had a toddler who was a strong-willed toddler. And I think looking back, I probably just went through what every mum and dad go through with a strong-willed toddler.
Yeah.
But I just felt like I was making it worse because I was depressed and I had anxiety. Now looking back, I'm like, you know what? And talking to people, I'm like, oh, everyone had kids like this. You're all shouting at your kids at night and you're going around crying and you're like, I'm a terrible parent. Like that's just part and parcel of the parenting journey that no one really tells you about.
That's it, yes.
You see beautiful parents on Instagram all wearing white and you're like, everyone's got it easy. And I've got a child who's refusing forcing her to go to bed, and she's 4 and it's like 11 p.m.
Oh, I need a break.
So I think that I was really hard on myself, but I learned so much. And because I was so committed to getting help, seeing a psychologist weekly, medication, and I learned so much that I felt like now looking back, she is an incredibly wise girl. She's seen a counsellor. She loves it. She loves talking about her emotions too. She loves saying to me, and just everything. She can speak so freely, and I just love that. And even when I have had anxious moments around her, like I came home a few weeks ago and we got Pomeranians, they jumped on the kitchen table and they had destroyed this huge moss arrangement I had in the middle. There was moss all through the house. Oh. And I just stood there and I just was about to lose the plot. And my 9-year-old, she's like, Mum, stop, big breath. Mum, take a few breaths. Oh, and I'm like, okay.
You love that.
Yep. And she's holding my hand and she looks at me. She's like, Mum, they're just dogs. They didn't do it on purpose. They're just doing it because they're dogs. And she goes, it is okay. It is not worth getting upset about this. I'll help you clean it up. And I'm looking at this 9-year-old going, where did you come from? Like, I was about to escalate to a point where I was going to scream at the dogs. Yeah. And she just brought me back. She's 9. And I was like, all my therapy and the way I've talked to her. Because I used to say this to her, let's breathe, let's, and she's doing it back to me. Oh. So I would say to parents who are worried, you know what, they are so incredible kids. They're resilient. As long as you take them on the journey and you're apologetic when you need to apologise. Yes. And I do. If I lose it at her, I'll be like, I am so sorry, that was wrong. Like, own your stuff. Kids love that. And they will learn from that as well. So now I look back and I'm like, I've got this extraordinary girl. I can't have stuffed it up too much.
Oh, gosh. You're exactly right. And now you've got this beautiful daughter who has an open heart, a wise mind, and can regulate herself and also co-regulate. Yeah. And that's such a huge part of parenting, isn't it? We share our calm with them when they need it. But by doing that, they learn to do that with us, and that must just make your heart feel like exploding. The little hands in yours and telling you to breathe, and it makes all the difference. It's just that little pause, isn't it? Yeah. And for her to be able to see that that's what you needed. Yeah, and
amazing.
Depends how you are on the day, doesn't it? Because you could come home one day and be feeling very relaxed, and there's not too much and there are not too many other things going on. So you're kind of more in that window of tolerance. So you're not going to tip over too much. You'll just go, oh, great. Very disappointing, upsetting because it was probably beautiful and now it's wrecked. But then other days you just don't. And was it last night? I think it was last night. So my husband was working late last night, and that's not normal at all. He usually doesn't come home. In fact, it's a rare thing for him to come home and set up his laptop, but he needed to. And I went and visited the neighbour because it was her birthday. I'd bought her a beautiful rose, and we went and visited the neighbour. My daughter and I came back, and then he was still working, and we normally all watch a show together, and we just love it. Like, it's just such a joy for us. And we were all kind of waiting to sort of get together, and kids were off doing their own thing, and I was doing a bit of work. And by the time we all got together to watch our show, our episode, it was late. It was like 11 o'clock and we're going to bed. And then I went into our daughter's room and she got out of bed to show me something. I'm like, no. And I kind of was fairly abrupt, normally I'm like, hey, sweetheart, let's do it tomorrow. But there was not much left in the tank. And I just thought, I'm just going to leave. I went and cleaned my teeth, and I come back. She goes, "You're a bit stroppy, aren't you, Mum?" She said, "You need to go to bed." So she's got that sense of humour, and it wasn't personal in any way. Not that normally is, but it's so nice, isn't it, that when we can be open and they can see that we're human, and that all emotions are important, and that they don't just see the bright and sunny side of us. Yeah. They learn that when they have these challenges, that they're not alone, and that there are really great practical ways to manage it, and somebody to talk to who understands.
That's right, yeah. And with that, even with the breathing thing she reminded me of that I do for her, when she watches her try that on me and it worked for me, it just reiterates when I try it on her, she can come back down into that window of tolerance as well. So it's amazing watching her grow up, and they are incredibly resilient children, and they're wonderful. If you take them on the journey and you're patient and kind, then you're not going to screw them up.
That's it. You talked about repair, and I just think that is so important. That's just a beautiful thing to be able to do. And that also, like you were saying about role modelling, it's totally role modelling for them that, they're going to make, we all stuff up. We all make
that's
mistakes.
right, exactly.
It's so normal.
Yeah.
And so then they're more likely to come back and say, hey, I'm sorry. And that really teaches them that. So there's something about being a good enough parent.
Yeah.
You know, there's a quote there. There's no way to be a perfect parent, but a million ways to be a good one.
That's right. And that's it.
Yeah. So, Lucy, you said before about your psychologist has been a real sort of support for you, an incredible support throughout. Are you still seeing the same person?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's been like, 5 maybe years now. I don't even know. I've lost count. Yeah, probably going on 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that you're so open about that too, because it can be incredibly life-changing.
Yes.
And that was certainly my experience. My psychologist retired, but he retired at a time, I know, right? Talk about anxiety-provoking. I sort of dipped in and dipped out for many years, and I think I saw him on and off for a period of 12 years, and there were times I said goodbye and I thought, I'm never going to see you again. And then next year I'm like, hello, I'm
again.
back.
Yes.
Hello again. I think normalising it is such a beautiful thing that you do in the way that you speak on air and that we're speaking about today.
Yeah.
What are some of the pearls of wisdom that you've picked up that have been reinforced with your psychologist over these years that have kind of really stayed with you that you can draw on, that maybe you could share with listeners that they might be able to sort of, take into their own lives?
I love I've said to people, when you go find a psychologist, not all one size fits all. Sometimes you'll meet one and you're like, we're not gelling. And so keep trying to find the one where you go, I feel safe and I feel home. And it also takes a while to get that relationship. You can't go for one session and come in and go, I am fixed, because it doesn't work like that. And I think some people think that. I remember I'd seen her for quite a while at one point, maybe about a year, and a very loved one who's of an older generation said, why do you still see her? Aren't you fixed? And I said, that's just not how it works. But not to put too much pressure on psychologists in general, but if I had not seen her, I do not think I would be alive. I truly believe she saved my life. And she has been an extraordinary support. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't met her. So I do think it was just such an incredible thing that she was in my life at that time and gave me the courage I needed and the support, and she's just been extraordinary. But she's been such a champion for me, and I didn't realise that I was so critical on myself until you sit in therapy. And so it's been amazing to have this person just stop and remind you of who you truly are. Yeah. So that's been life-changing for me. She's given me lots of tips over the years about anxiety. And there's a few that are really so very helpful. And they sometimes sound silly. And I go, that's not going to work. Like, okay, lady. Yeah. But then you go away and you're like, that really does work. And there's simple things. Sometimes there's simple things like, if I'm working my way up, go take your shoes off and go stand in the grass. Cold ice chips in the mouth to sometimes break that neurological pattern of anxiety. When I'm really, really low, wrapping yourself so tight in a blanket and getting on a rocking chair and just rocking all rugged up. When she told me these things, I was like, lady, come on. But they were really helpful. All these self-soothing techniques, tapping my chest, like they were so silly and simple. I thought she was going to give me these big neurological theses on, how to combat the neural pathways. But it came back to all these simple things. And then also, I think just the main thing was sitting there learning. She had a little whiteboard and she talked to me about when you get into hyperarousal and hypoarousal, and learning to know when I was getting into that stage and the things I could do when I was in that stage, and even just the knowledge of, like not just going, I'm a head case or feeling out of control, but going, okay, my body is showing signs I'm moving into hyperarousal. What are some things I can do to try and slow that down or bring it down? And I think one of the other things, like I could go on forever, but when I had started having panic attacks over a period of time, she was like, a panic attack lasts about 11 minutes. And I was like, she goes, so if you can just go, you know what, this is going to be over soon, just ride it through. She goes, there will be an end point. You're not going to have a panic attack that lasts 2 years. It's going to stop in about 11 minutes. And that was really, really helpful. Yeah. And the other thing, because obviously I won't shut up. The other thing was, she was the person who said to me, you need to go see a GP. I think we need to get you on some sort of medication. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know about medication. And she was like, you know what, Lucy, if you're sick, you go to the doctor. They'll check you out. If you need antibiotics, you'll go on them. She goes, this is just no different. You go to the doctor. If there's something to help you, then let's do that.
Yes.
Let's just do it. She goes, it's fine. Won't be for forever. She goes, it'll just keep your head above water so you don't feel like you're drowning every day. And I was like, oh, that analogy helps.
Yes.
And so she just made it really, it's okay, it's fine. And that was a turning point for me. Yeah.
Medication was a turning point for me too. And I was really reticent. There's this stigma around it, isn't it? There's this, I will take, like I injured my back recently and I'm taking some anti-inflams.
Yep.
Because I saw my GP, who is also a physio, so he's awesome. And so he was able to sort of diagnose, assess and say, yep, the anti-inflams will really make a difference. And I'll go, yes, doc, thank you. I'll do as you've advised me to.
Yeah.
And I didn't take, I took the medication with the depression. Then I went off it. And that is not advised. I always do it under the supervision of a medical practitioner. When you should wean off
very slowly.
Medication very, very slowly. And I did wean off, probably not as slowly as I could have, but, we live and learn. And then I slumped back down, went back on the medication and started some really serious therapy.
Yeah.
And then eventually went off. But as I was going through therapy, I was understanding I actually learned, I have anxiety and have had my whole life.
Yeah.
And so the arousal level for me was just so heightened for so long that eventually my brain and body just went, hello, enough's enough. We can't do this anymore. And the shutdown sort of started to happen.
Yeah.
And then I was determined that I'm going to solve this. I'm going to, there's got to be
think my
something
way out
I
of
can
it.
do. Right? I'm so proactive.
Yeah.
And eventually I had the kids and it was so interesting. And I wonder if any listeners can relate to this. I don't know. We'll learn more about you because this will not be the first conversation we'll have on the podcast.
Yay!
But Peter said to me, because I was just determined that I was going to do it by myself and I wasn't very well. And then we had these two little toddlers, 22 months apart.
Oh, wow.
And planned that way. What were we thinking? What was I thinking? And then he said, I really think it's going to make a difference. It's made a difference for you before. I really think it could again. Would you consider if you it seems to me you won't do it for you, will you do it for us?
Right.
And I was like, it was like a light bulb moment. I said, oh my gosh. I was so in my head and so focused on my own challenges that I just wasn't making that connection between how I was and how much more I could enjoy being a parent.
Yes.
And how much more present I could be and how much easier it would be for Pete because he got a dozen phone calls a day saying, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
Somebody said this person looked at me funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And I didn't understand that because, again, the stigma around it. And I grew up in church circles and sometimes in church circles, the church circles I grew up in, it just was never talked about ever. And I think sometimes in that world it can be just pray more. And great, pray for sure, but get help. Like if your car starts running really badly and a wheel falls off, we don't go, you know what, I'm going to pray that wheel back on. You take it to a mechanic and you go, hey, you're a professional. It's running badly. Can you fix it and put the wheel back on? And a mechanic goes, sure. Yeah. And we afford this to our cars. We don't afford it to ourselves. And I'm like, going to see a doctor is just like going to see your mechanic. Yes. Have a look under the hood. What do I need replacing? What do I need fixing? Oh, I need a little bit of help for a while. I didn't understand. I didn't understand what antidepressants did. I was like, I don't want to be a zombie. And I wasn't. And I had one GP I saw said, Lucy, depression is like you're standing in a room and it is filling with water and you are starting to drown. And I'm like, yes. He goes, so what you'll feel like, he goes, I can't empty the water in the room. He goes, but antidepressants is a box and you stand on it and you put your head out of the water and you can breathe. And I was like, that is such a great analogy. And that was the analogy that I was like, all right, I'm going to give them a try. That was it. This vision of being able to breathe. And that's what it was like for me. I was completely myself, but I could just breathe. Yes. I wasn't panicking. I didn't want to take my life. It just helped me get through a really rocky period. One of my favorite authors and podcasters is Glennon Doyle.
Oh, yes.
And she goes, Jesus loves me, this I know, for he gave me Lexapro. Which I've always loved because I was on Lexapro, which I thought was great. And look, there's been periods of time where I've gone back to my psychologist and I'm like, I think I need to go back on it. Yeah. And she is so in tune with me and I see her so regularly. She's like, actually, no, I don't think you do right now. So let's use these coping strategies for a bit and we'll reassess in a couple of weeks. And she knows me better than I know myself sometimes. And she was right every time, which has been amazing. And that's the benefit of having professionals around you when you battle this kind of stuff. You can't do it by yourself.
You can't do it. And I've always called that your A team, kind of like your anxiety team, but your A team. It's your GP and your psychologist or a counsellor.
Yes.
And a mental health professional who you trust. And like you said before, it's like finding a pair of jeans.
That's right.
Oh, which is awfully difficult. As a woman, I find it incredibly hard to find the right pair of jeans. It's certainly not the first pair I put on. And my psychologist was the third.
Yeah, right.
And it was a bit of a difficult, unsettling experience to see one psychologist and you've got a referral. And if you don't have the confidence, I love that you've talked about this and that we can really talk about this, because psychologists and mental health professionals, it's hard to come by an appointment.
Yes.
And so for listeners who are waiting on waiting lists or seeing someone they're not quite connected with, it might feel quite scary to kind of think, but you can always, one of the things you can always do if you're not with the right fit mental health professional, you can always stay connected with your GP in between, which is, I think, a really good suggestion for people. But it is worth it, because so much of the therapeutic kind of value comes from the relationship that you have with each other, and so it's got to be the right person.
Yeah, and just having someone where you just go, blah, this is all the crazy stuff, and they just go, yep, normal.
Yes.
And you go, oh, I thought I was the only person. And they're like, nope, this is, every person who sits in front of me is dealing with this. And then you realize, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. I'm okay. And I think just having someone justify my experience, hear it, go, or I'd say, this happened, and I'd be wailing, and she'd go, you know what? That is awful. Yeah. That is traumatic.
Yeah.
Just to have someone I value so high and a professional go, yes, that is an awfully messed up situation. Yeah. Yes, I can see why you're depressed. Yes, I can see why that's pushed you to the edge. This is awful. It's not normal.
Yeah.
And just having someone validate what I was going through, because your friends and your family are all like, they see it, but to have someone who's removed go, yep, and you go, oh, that was like the biggest thing for me, just having someone walk me through and go, this is very, very hard, but I'm here to walk with it. That was worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. You are going through a really difficult time, and it's natural to feel how you're feeling.
Yeah.
It's very reassuring.
Yeah.
And I know with your GP, was it your GP you said that you would talk to about maybe going back on medication? Was it your...
No, that was my psychologist.
That was your psychologist.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know that there'll be listeners who've had their own challenges and thought, oh, maybe this is what I need. And to have somebody that you trust to talk to say, no, actually you're having a very normal reaction to a very difficult situation, and this is very normal, and this will pass, and that it's really important for us to recognise and experience what we feel.
Yes.
And there's some incredible research, and I wonder if you've heard this, and it's really good for parents, it's good for all of us, but comes from the work of Daniel Siegel, who's incredible. Name it to tame it. You may have heard of that before. But what it does, actually, when we can put words to how we're feeling, then it actually settles the part of the brain that has detected threat and sounded the alarm.
So true.
So just even being able to have that little bit of space, and sometimes that's what I'm still on medication. That's what we need, is just that little bit of space to be able to go, this is what's happening for me, because it's easy sometimes to get really swept away.
Yeah.
When we can say, I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
And often I'll say to myself, if I'm really sad or upset or disappointed or something's happened where I'm just not feeling good, I'll just recognise it and I'll say, oh, well, I'm just going to feel that way today.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's big, isn't it?
Yeah, and inevitably and ironically and greatly, you actually tend to move through what you're feeling quicker.
Yeah,
because you've acknowledged it.
And I think that's been a big thing for me too, because again, being a people pleaser, trying to look like I've got everything together, I would, really not try and touch my emotions sometimes. And just trying to grin and bear it, everything's fine, look at me, life is happy, even though my life behind the scenes for a very long period of time was very, very unhappy. So now to be like, I am angry about this, and that is okay. That was revolutionary to me, to go, this is not fair. Yep, it's not. Yeah. Life's not fair. To go, I am really sad that this is happening, and just sit in it and go, as opposed to I was always trying to put on a performance, and and when my life fell apart, everyone was like, we had no idea. And I was like, well, this has been going on for forever. I was unhappy from a long time ago, but I just could never touch my emotions. And when I finally went to counselling and and everyone would have said, oh, Lucy's a very emotional person, but it was almost like a facade of emotion, because when I really got in deep to my emotions and touched them, that's where the power was. Like, it was just revolutionary for me to go and feel all these things and really feel them and name them and get through them. And I've said this on air a lot, and I must have heard this in counselling somewhere, but I do feel like, especially when you're going through an awful moment, I'm like, it is just a tunnel, right? And it's black, but you've just got to keep on moving through it.
Yes.
Like, don't sit down in the tunnel, cross your legs and go, "Bleh." Like, just plod through that tunnel, because there is light there. It might take you a long time. It might not be that long, but whatever feeling you're feeling, if something happens at work and you're angry, just plod through that tunnel, because you'll come out at the end of it. Just don't sit in the tunnel of anger, just whatever that is. So I often visualize that tunnel when I'm stuck in something, going, just going to plod through it, and I'm going to come out at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. And when we do get a little bit of space, we can objectively say to ourselves, I know this isn't going to last, but it's just so hard when you're in it. I want to come back to something that we talked about a little bit off air before we started recording, and that you mentioned before about people pleasing. That's we've got so much in common, and this people pleasing. I think now I'm 49. I'm so much less interested. I just don't have the mental space, the bandwidth. I've got so much happening. I don't focus on things so much, and I'm much more. I've always been honest, but I don't think I've always been able to be authentically myself, because I was always worried about how I would be viewed and would I be liked.
Yes.
And I'm reading a book at the moment, and this author, Kate Toon, she wrote, I wanted to be adored, hate me for it, She was,
that's so true.
And we want to, I think it's a very natural thing to want to be liked. And from our brain's point of view, we want to be included. Yeah. If we're not included and we're obviously excluded, then that's threatening to us. Yeah. So it's a natural thing, but I feel as though it's something I'm working on. How are you with people pleasing? How does it sort of impact you, and how are you going with it?
Yeah, I've come such a long way, but only in the last few years. So this whole period of time, the anxiety, everything, getting tossed into a blended, and then you've got to recreate your own life after you've blended your life up. I've learned so much through that, because I realised I just had nothing left. And I just didn't care what people thought anymore. And it took that point. It took a divorce. It took people who I'd gone to church with for 20 years never contacting me again. I lost so many people. I lost community. I lost connection. And I said my divorce was like the great sieve. And I sieved and sieved and sieved, and I got rid of all the sand, and all that was left was a few lumps of gold, but my goodness, they were gold. And I was okay with that. I was not angry, nor was I bitter. But I realised that I found the people that I cared what they thought, and that was all that mattered. I did not care what people thought about me up to that point, but that took me 40-odd years to get to that. Because when I started in radio, and the nature of radio and performance and being on stage, your whole point is that you want people to like you. That's the nature of performing. So you're on stage going, look at me, clap for me, and then they're clapping and you're like, oh, I feel great, they're clapping. Or you work in radio, you make people laugh and they go, hey, I love you, like, hey. And that is, after a while, really empty life. Because you're searching and then you realise it doesn't actually matter. And for every person that likes you, there's someone who'll send you a text and go, I hate listening to you. And you're like, oh, okay, oh, great.
Okay, turn the station over.
Then you'll sob and cry, and then you're giving all your power away to people that you don't even care about, you don't even know. And so I've had this, it's been so funny working in radio, because there are so many highs and then there are so many lows as well when you come up against keyboard warriors. I mean, it's a different world we live in now. But I have gotten to a place where I'm like, even I said it on this morning on the show that I was on the Brecky show, my show. I said, I was talking about how I've started playing Roblox with my daughter. I've got a gaming account and I Roblox with my daughter. And I said, I was like, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care if you think I'm a bad mum for playing games with my daughter. I really said, I really don't care. And I laughed afterwards, because I thought I would have never said that 10 years ago. In fact, I wouldn't have said that I Robloxed with my daughter, because I would have been scared of judgment. I was very careful with what I said and the information I gave, because I was terrified of judgment. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? Judge me. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me. The only things that matter are my family and my friends and God and my daughter. They're the things that matter. And so I have gotten so much better on that people-pleasing journey, and a big part was learning to say no. That was probably the biggest part, because I get asked to do a lot of things, go to a lot of places, and I'd always be like, yep, and then I would just burn myself out. So part of my people-pleasing was going, I can't do that. And then walking away going, it's okay if they're disappointed. It's okay.
Yes.
That's not mine to carry. It's okay. Can't be all things to all people. Yeah. So I have gotten so much better. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'd rather be someone's margarita. I love that saying. Yes. And that's okay because it takes all sorts and we're not going to gel with every single person we meet. And that's okay now. So I have come a long way on that journey. So I think I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Yes.
Completely.
Oh,
I'm still there. Like you still go, like me. But it's not, it doesn't drive me. It drove me. And now I'm like, it's a bit better now. It's a lot better.
Yeah. So, and it will continue to improve, no doubt.
Yeah.
I think the older we get, we just care less about what people think of us. And like you say, we care deeply about the people that we care deeply about and what they think of us, if that makes sense. It's like a tongue twister.
I mean, it still pops up occasionally. Like the other day we were looking at a house and I went and put on a lovely outfit before I went to the inspection. And my husband's like, what are you doing? He goes, do you think they're going to give you the house because you're in a nice dress? And I said, maybe. I'll go, hey, you look great. He laughs. So it's still there under the surface.
So funny. I popped up to the top shops. We call it the top shops where I lived for a cuppa yesterday morning because I had a really early start and I'm like, kids are asleep. I'm going to get up, go and get a nice coffee and then start my workday. And I literally just rolled out of bed, fed the dog, threw on some tracksuit pants that happened to be bright green, and then thought, it's a bit chilly, I'll just throw on a jumper. Happened to be bright pink, and it's the classic, the people who see you at the shops 2 minutes from your home are the ones that see you at your absolute worst. Yep. And I have considered in the past going in Ugg boots, but I have stopped myself. And and the girl behind the counter, she's like, you look so lovely, that's a beautiful colour on you.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then I said, I'm not very well matched. She goes, you look the picture of spring.
Aww.
And which was just so lovely.
You go.
But I wasn't fussed. Like when I walked out the door, I kind of knew that it wasn't, it wasn't the greatest, but who cares? Like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas, 10 years ago, I would have, literally, like would have put on not a great outfit, but something a little bit more coordinated. But it ended up being a beautiful interaction. Yes. And the kindness that she showed me, I suggested I might look a little bit like a garden bed. But, so you've shared very openly, and thank you again for sharing how you've experienced suicidal ideation, that you've been through a really difficult divorce that was protracted and a very, very difficult time with depression. When you were going through all of that, you were still showing up to be a breakfast announcer here at the station. How did you manage with that kind of the difficulty in your time, but having to show up and put on a show for the listeners?
It's so interesting because it was such a long period of time and nobody knew. Nobody knew. My workplace knew, my bosses knew, my colleagues knew. But I couldn't go on air and be like, hey, everyone, I'm in a horrific divorce and I'm off to court this afternoon. It was very personal and I was very, very not close to coping. And I didn't have any time off. I look back and I didn't even take any mental health leave because, again, I'm like, I had to keeping on. And so I think, look, I don't think that I'm the poster girl for that because I think there probably needed to be a bit more self-care in that time. Yeah. But part of the recovery and the healing, the coping was the consistency and the constant nature of my job. And it gave me a reason to get up out of bed. And again, it's a place of privilege because not everyone has that. But I would be like, you have to get up and entertain Melbourne because what happens if there's someone out there doing it worse than you are? And right now they need you to cheer them up. So I felt like this responsibility to be there for the people like me who were just done. And I would come into the studio and that 3 hours in that studio was like I could shut the door and pretend that my life was not falling apart. Yeah. And I could have fun and I could have laughter. And I can listen back to that time and know I sound different. It's not the same Lucy. But I don't think if any people clicked, my true friends could hear it in my voice. Yes. And they'd be like, you are not okay. And then I'd leave the studio and go into my life, which was so devastating. But it was just that if I don't think I had this job, I don't know what would have happened. It forced me to get out of bed. I had to keep going. Yeah. And because the nature of our radio show and our station, if your listeners don't know, it's all about positivity. It's all uplifting. It's not shock jocks. Every single thing is about transforming lives, being positive, blessing people, making them laugh, encouraging them. And, that famous phrase, we rise when we lift others, that is, I swear, what was happening. So I felt like I just have to lift others. And then through doing that with positivity and everything we did, I lifted myself out of it. And again, not everyone has this job. So but for me, that is how I managed to get through it. So I'm very grateful for that, because it was the support of this place and the nature of the job that helped me get through the worst time. And I was so scared. Like, we talk about the stigma of depression. I didn't want to tell people I was depressed, and I certainly didn't want to tell people I was getting divorced, because I was so scared of the judgment. But when I finally was able to talk about it, and I remember the first few times I started talking about mental health, going, I am depressed, I am on medication. The outpouring of love from the listeners, and they had grown up with me because I'd been here for so long. They were so extraordinary. It was stellar. They were like, thank you for talking about this. We love you. We got you. Yeah. It's okay. And their stories of depression, their stories of divorce, them going, you will be okay. Like, the outpouring of love I had over those years when I started being honest about what had happened was like nothing I'd ever experienced. And I was so humbled and blessed that everyone held space for me in my journey and that I could be honest. And then that was when I realized, this is what radio's about. It's not about coming on and being like, hey, chi cha cha, hey, it's a great day. It's about coming on going, hey, this is all the junk in my life laid before you, and you got it too. And let's all just discuss it, because life is so flipping hard. Let's just try and get through this the best we can together, because we are all in this together. We all want to have this great experience we call life. We've got to figure it out together. No more masks, no more facades. And that was part of me going, I just don't care anymore. And that's been so freeing. And I've loved working radio for 15 years, but the years where I have just given up caring about what people think and talking about who I truly am, that has been revolutionary. That's when I went, oh, I love this more than anything.
Yes.
And I have loved doing that. And I remember one lady, like, I had years and years of great comments from people. One lady, I was like texted and going, you always talk about your mental health. I'm sick of it. And I remember I was like, I was so upset. I was like, oh no. But I thought, you know what, I know that there's a saying, you listen to that one bit of negative feedback and you carry it. You might get 300 good ones and you don't remember it. But I just went, no, that's okay. That's her own journey. That's where she's at. It's okay. I'm probably triggering something in her. And I learned to have very quickly a place of empathy for people, instead of going, that person doesn't like me. I'm like, oh, that's okay. Everyone's going through stuff. Everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Everyone is. And that's what I love about you, is that you are so truly authentically you. And when I listen, I learn so much. I learn more about you every time and in fact, when we're off air, I have to ask about something I missed the other day because I had to hop out of the car. It was about the school holidays. Thank you for being authentic and for having the courage, because it does take courage to actually take that step to say, I'm actually going to be more real and be more open and be more honest. But I've found too that you feel vulnerable. You can feel vulnerable, can't you? That you're opening up. But by far and away, people are just like, oh, thank goodness for that, because now I've got a different perspective, and we know that no matter where we're walking in life, no matter what things might look like, you're up in your amazing shiny red Kylie Minogue. Is that latex or I don't know?
No, it's not latex. It's lycra.
Lycra. Oh my gosh, you should check out Lucy's socials to have a look at that costume. Amazing. We can tend to draw conclusions about what we think is happening for people, and social media, which you raise, can really paint a picture that is very bright and shiny. Yeah. And so I love that that you are authentically you. And before we part ways, and I know that we'll talk again, of course, here on the podcast and in the hallways, because I'll be here a lot now, which is just divine.
So good.
I just want to thank you, because I first met you and connected with you. I was actually on the phone and we were talking about mental health, and that, gosh, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years ago, probably 2 years ago, because time goes so fast. And ever since that day, I just felt really welcomed.
Good.
And I felt that that you're a person, you and Cal, and obviously Cam and Joe, who I've talked to as well, have just really made me feel super welcome here as a guest, speaking and chatting about what I'm really passionate about. Yeah. And so it's really just quite surreal to be here together with you here in the studio and, to be recording. And I just really want to thank you for being my first guest, because doing this with you today has helped me to feel more relaxed about this big and exciting change for me.
Yes.
And knowing how open you are about your own mental health, I just know listeners will just be so grateful to you for all that you've shared. And so on behalf of the listeners who are now part of this beautiful organisation with you and me together here today, I just want to say a big thank you.
Oh, you are more than welcome. We absolutely love you here, and you have helped Kel and I with our mental health. Like when we've had you on, Kel and I've gone away and gone, we won't go into it. You should have Kel on one day, but you gave him a tip once that has been revolutionary for him and has helped him so many times. So we're so thankful and we're so excited to be part of the family. Yeah. And like I said, we need to talk about this more often. We know that 1 in 2 Aussies in their life will battle a mental health issue, like 50%. And for the 50% that don't, your loved ones will. So this touches all of us. So knowledge is power. The more we talk about it, remove shame, remove stigma, and just talk about it, the more power we have and the better we'll all be. And that's what I'm passionate about. We're all hot messes.
That's it.
We're all imperfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. That's the wonderful thing about life. And so let's just get little tips so how we can get better together. And I think I'm so excited about the listeners discovering this podcast, because there's no shame in anxiety. Zero shame. Have no shame. It will be okay, and it can get better, and that's what you're teaching, and I love that.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. Thank you so much, and thank you, listeners. It is just honestly so exciting to be here with you today, and really grateful always for your time listening, and very, very much look forward to being back with you again next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.